Hey everyone, this is Ari Winters, creative director here at Heavyocity, and welcome back to The Click Track, a podcast about composing, music, and the tech behind it. And again, I'm here with our distinguished co-host, Jason Graves. Hey Jason, how's it going, man?
Good, man. How are you doing?
All right, so let's get right into this segment. We figured we'd do a little kind of mini episode here about the things that we love to use that we're calling The Things We Love. Feel free, this is a working title. What do you think, Jason? Is it a good one?
I mean, I love things, so the things we love, absolutely. I'd be curious to see if anyone had any better suggestions.
Yes, definitely. If you have a better suggestion, please write it in the comments if you're on YouTube. If not, send us an email. We'll have to set up an email for you. And we'll figure that out as we go. All right, so let's dive right in. We actually chose the same piece of gear for the things that we love.
What a coincidence.
It actually is such an incredible piece of gear. We are talking about the Manley Massive Passive EQ. I'd love to start and hear what you do with it, how you use it, where you put it in your chain. Is it on your master bus? Do you use it for individual instruments? Just run with it.
It's quite the versatile piece of kit, that's for sure. I'm honestly amazed sometimes just running things through it without even the EQs activated, because it's a 4-band parametric passive equalizer, and we won't spend the time to go into what passive EQing is, but it's a completely different kind of technology other than like the regular sort of EQing. It's incredibly transparent yet powerful. So it does a lot without calling a lot of attention to itself. And on top of that, you add the fact that it's tube-based. So you've got a tube-based EQ. So even with the EQs turned off, you're getting this kind of warm, gooey signal. I have it on my master bus all the time. Occasionally, I'll either track through it or maybe process, like if there's a particularly grungy sort of thing that I'm not just happy with, maybe a different outboard EQ or just a VST EQ. Usually the Massive Passive can handle it. But it's great because it's stereo. So it's kind of built to live on the master bus. It's one of those things that is just so versatile because it also has shelves, filters. So it's got a low pass filter and a high pass filter. And, actually, I'd be curious, Ari, in a minute to get into some of your maybe favorite settings, because I definitely have some things that it sort of hovers in the same kind of area depending on what track's going on. But it makes everything sound better. Even if I've been working on a cue the day before and I dialed that Massive Passive right in, and I'm working on a completely different cue the next day. This just happened last week, as a matter of fact. It was all synths, and they just all sounded amazing. It was all analog synths and didn't think it needed anything. And I thought, well, it's already patched in. All I got to do is just undo the bypass button in Cubase. Sure, I'll send it through the Massive Passive. And it immediately sounded like the equivalent of washing your windows. You know what I mean? Like all the streaks were gone. And it was just like crystal clear in HD. And that was with the settings from the day before. That wasn't even me dialing anything in yet.
It's just like putting glasses on for the first time, right?
Exactly. That's what my daughter just had glasses to correct her astigmatism last week, and she was going, "Look at the trees, look at the leaves, look at the texture of the grass." It's like it does that for your music. Okay, so I'm curious.
Okay.
My high pass is always set to one of two things. Either 22 or 39, just to kind of get rid of any low sub rumbles. What about you? How do you like to use the high pass?
Well, that's funny that you would say that. I have mine set to, what do you know, 22.
Very nice, very nice. Now, normally with my low pass, it's either off or it's on like 18K. However, with the synth thing I was doing last week, actually, it was such a warm, like fat synth mix. There was hardly anything going on in the upper level, except for a little bit of hiss because I had something like 12 synthesizers just wide open with all the channels. So I actually, I pulled the low cut, the low pass, I pulled that down to like 9K.
Oh,
And it
interesting.
just magically took out the hiss and kept everything like warm and gooey. What do you usually do with the highs?
Right now it's on the master bus, and I have my low pass set to 18K. Um,
Hmm.
However, I am boosting the high end with a shelf, which means, it's not a peak. There's no bell or anything on the EQ boost. It's just raising everything up from there and above
Mm-hmm.
it. I have it
Yeah.
up pretty significantly. You know, I have a 6 dB bump at 12K as a shelf.
12.
Yeah.
I've got mine at 18, Mr. Winters.
Oh man, well, I guess we don't match up there. Which would explain, if I boosted it at 18 and then cut at 18, that would it would be like a double bypass button.
It's actually kind of like a Pultec sort of thing. I've seen, so there's this amazing manual that comes with it, and they've got pictures of all the way the low cut works, the way the shelves work, the way the bells work, and you can do that sort of Pultec thing where you could put a cut on the highs, but also do a shelf, and depending on how you dial in that cue, you can get like some really cool things that you
Right.
couldn't normally do. I guess maybe if you're in Pro Q and you use like 6 bands and put it on linear mode and then run it through a tube and then do all this other stuff. But here you just flip a couple of switches. What about your lowest band? What do you normally have that set to out of the 4 bands?
Ooh. So that actually will depend on the type of track. If I have like
Sure.
a synth heavy track that's using the Moog Minotaur, for example,
Yeah.
I may be a little more cautious with how much boost and what the boost is on the low end. If it's a more orchestral track, I may bump up the bottom. I might set it to like 68 or 100 and boost it as a shelf again by 460B. But again, this is really dependent. If it's a really synth heavy track, I'm pretty cautious about how much I boost at the bottom. I'll set it to 32, which is essentially the lowest tick on the EQ band settings, and then boost that just a little bit and then notch it out again at 22. What about you? How do you handle the low end from this thing?
And it's very, very similar. Right now it's set to 47 with the shelf, but I actually don't even have it engaged because I'm pretty sure the last time I was using this was on that synth thing, just like you said. And it didn't need any additional low end. It needed to have it sort of tamed a little bit. One of the things I love is the Q knob. Like depending on where you set it, you can get plus or minus up to 20 dB of plus or minus whatever that frequency is. Like the sharper the Q, the more you turn that small middle knob kind of in the middle, the more clockwise that goes, the more plus or minus you get. So if it's all the way, like what I guess is maybe like 5 o'clock, that means you're getting plus or minus 20. But if you have it halfway, that's like plus or minus 10. And normally for me, mine are usually between like 10 and usually between like 9 and 10. Sometimes they go up to noon, which means the whole gamut would be like 10 dB. But it's like I'm looking and that's probably, it's like 3 or 4 dB here, 3 or 4 dB there. On my mids, normally, out of those 4 bands, my top band is a shelf, right? I'm boosting something. My bottom band is a shelf. It's super cool. You can have the mids be shelves as well. You could double shelve it, like do crazy things. But I have them on bells, and I'm scooping the mids. I'm boosting the lows and highs. Probably lowest mid, like 350.
Yep.
maybe 560. I'm taking out something. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah, same. I'm taking out something there. A lot of times I'll actually boost around 4K, which is the third band up,
Yep.
and then cut, the second band.
A little goes a long way.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit goes a long way with this. You also have an extra 6 dB of gain if you needed it.
Yep.
The unit itself has a gain knob in the middle for both the left and the right channels, and you can either cut or boost 6 dB in addition to the boost per channel.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing.
And if you have the mastering version, there's a link so you can only turn one set of knobs instead of two.
Have you have the regular version or the mastering version?
We have the regular version.
Yeah.
Which actually, this is a great question and one that I always love to hear other people's input on. Do you put this pre or post compression on your master bus?
Oh, post compression.
Yeah, I have mine post right now. I do have a couple of other pieces of gear, which we can get into in another episode, like the Black Box HG2 and the Obsidian compressor. But I have my EQ post compression at the moment, where you glue it all together with the compressor, and then if you want to hype or change or tweak just a little bit here and there, it comes in right after, and then you record back in.
I've found so I have all my outboard as plugins in Cubase. So I literally just insert it on the master bus as a plugin, and it's a matter of just clicking the stereo bus compressor and dragging it up to the Massive Passive, and they'll swap places. And it's like, especially with the top end and the bottom end, I end up just exciting the compressor, the master bus compressor, too much. And I'm hearing the compressor color the Massive Passive, where what I want to hear the Massive Passive like unadulterated.
Right.
And I think I've got some old mixes where I actually had them reversed, and I'll pull up a preset link that's got the order, and I'm sitting there for 5 minutes going, something is weird, and I'm turning the knobs of the Massive Passive, and I'm looking at the compression ratio on the 2500, the bus compressor I have, and I realize it's because they're switched, and it's just a completely different sound, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of a completely different sound, or not, I'm curious, have you done anything with like the UAD Massive Passive?
Yeah, it's, they did a terrific job making a version, if you don't have the bandwidth to have a hardware unit, say you're on your laptop or whatever, and there's plenty of professionals that use the plugins. They sound great. They are, about as true as you could get to the hardware unit. With the plugin, you can have both the mastering and regular version at your fingertips. It's recalled with your session, which is another nice thing.
Yeah.
No recall with hardware, but it's worth it, right? It's worth that pain of no recall.
So, do you know how I do recall for the Massive Passive in my studio?
How do you? I do not.
I use the UAD plugin as a bypassed preset saver.
That's a great idea. So you just have it bypassed. You have it sitting there with the controls set.
Yeah, it works great, and it instantly recalls, and then I just have to go and do some tweaks. It was interesting because I did some apples to apples comparisons within this last year, and the only difference I could really tell between like the software and the hardware was I had to like dig into the software about twice as much to get the same result that I got from the hardware. And the sound was the same. But once I dialed it in and kind of went back and forth, it's like, yeah, I definitely can't tell the difference. It was usually that Q knob was turned up a lot more, and also the general either cut or boost was turned up more. And I don't know why, but it wasn't bad. It was just like, it just needed more. It just needed more signal, I guess. I'm not sure. It's probably something to do with being in the analog world versus being digital. The way it compensates with the signal and things. That's a whole other series of talks for us to get into. But yeah,
to be discussed later.
Amazing. Yeah. Especially, you can use multiple instances, right? I don't know how much processing power it takes, but nothing compared to the newest ones. You could have like 20 Massive Passives, which is just insane.
I think, Alan Meyerson, the film score mixer, I think he always has his 6 set up, if I remember correctly. He may have even more now, but he did a couple of cool video series where he, they're always on, always in.
I believe I may be guilty of pausing that video and copying down the presets that he had, like the dials tuned in.
I didn't do that either at all.
Guilty.
Not once. Never did I do that. It's a great piece of gear. Again, another one of those, the things that I love in my studio that's always on, no matter what the piece of music is, no matter what the recording chain is. It's always there. Again, follow us, subscribe to the podcast, please. If you have some recommendations on gear that you love, please let us know. We'd love to hear about it. Jason, thanks for joining me again on this amazing journey.
Happy to be here.
Take care.